Welcome back, my name is Nico, but many of you probably know me as the voice of Alden P. Snides on The Dark Dominion, a D&D actual play being live streamed over on twitch.tv/5%chance. Session 4 is going to be live July 30th at 7 p.m. EST, but before that, we're lucky enough to be sponsored by 2C Gaming. Some of you may remember the Epic Legacy content that I went over in a previous video, where we leveled up Alden's son Dalen to level 30. You heard me right, I said level 30. Epic Legacy is a line of D&D 5th edition supplements that allows you to go above and beyond the constraints of what is currently D&D 5th edition. You have epic spells, epic magic items, epic classes. The list of epic stuff that you have access to goes on and on, but today we're going to focus on epic enemies. I mentioned in a previous video that 2C Gaming had sent us the Tome of Titans, Volume 1. Which has stats, mechanics, and story, and loads more for all of the big bads that you're gonna need in order to challenge your epic adventurers. This time, 2C sent us Total Party Kill Beastiary Volume 2, which has all the extra baddies that you're gonna need to challenge your adventurers from levels 20 all the way up to level 30. They also sent us a nifty DM screen, which is super apt, because every member of the Dark Dominion cast is a forever DM. Especially Brill. Thank you, Brill. Super clean on the outside, super stable, and on the inside, heaps of info to help you run your epic campaign. Especially extra tools to help you adjust your creatures and encounters to really challenge your epic players in your epic campaign. Put that aside for now, the Total Party Kill Beastiary Volume 2 has all of the baddies, maybe not your BBEGs, but all of your baddies, your little henchmen and things that you'll need to challenge your adventurers at and above level 20. It's sort of like a monster's manual, but instead of everything being organized alphabetically, this is organized categorically, which makes a lot more sense, especially in late game. So, say your campaign focuses specifically on encounters with vampires. There's a section here on vampire nobility, which begins on page 246. So I'm gonna give you guys an idea of some of the baddies that you'll be up against. But it's not just that. There's also magic items and boons and other things that you can reward your players with and challenge your players with inside of here. So let's check that out. I just got to page 246. I wanna share this with everyone. Look at this art. It's so pretty, it's so beautiful, it's so good. There's also a template here for vampires, which applies if you have a creature or something that you already have in your game and you want to make that vampiric, or you want to basically turn that thing into a vampire. Let's say you have an owlbear, but you want to have a vampire owlbear, an epic vampire owlbear. It gives you stats on exactly how to do that. I'll give you guys an idea of exactly what that looks like. First of all, your creature type changes to undead shapeshifter. Also, your strength, dexterity, and charisma increase by 3, and their maximum is increased to 30. The creature gains proficiency in saving throws of its choice. Could you imagine if you gave that to a player? It would make a huge difference. There's more here, but I don't want to give away too much of the book. There are also stats in here for legendary vampires, because remember, this section is called Vampire Nobility. And just bumping up to a legendary vampire increases your CR by 2. And gives you access to 3 legendary actions that I don't want to give away. Anyway, let's look at the monsters, the items, and the boons and effects and things that you encounter when you're encountering vampire nobility at and above level 20. First, you have the Blood Count, or Blood Countess. And like everything else in this book, this art is immaculate. There's an excerpt here in a text. I had the misfortune of interviewing a Blood Countess while researching a cabal of supposedly misunderstood vampires. Never have I felt so much like prey within the talons of a vicious predator, so when sitting across from such a creature, it was as if my blood longed to leap from my veins and down her throat. At her side were pitiful thralls, ensnared by magic, from which she sipped blood as one would drink from a glass of wine. What was most disturbing was the expressions of joy on her servants' faces as they expired. The long-awaited end to their suffering had finally come. Also, she gave terrible answers to my questions. From Talion Vos Carven. There's another bit here in the writing which is really important, especially in here. All this is kind of late game stuff. So there are extra details that they put in here to help DMs kind of figure out what kinds of monsters and creatures make sense in this really past late game content. So the classification for the Countess is Leader. And it says here the Countess favors bards and clerics with high HP, and protection from paladins and high-level spells. The Countess also foils rogues, sorcerers, stealth, low wisdom, wizards, and warlocks. It gives you the plot hooks, the layer actions for this. I'm not going to spoil all that for you guys because you can get this book for yourselves, but there is enchantment that you have access to if you encounter or manage to defeat one of these blood counts or countesses. Hemomancy. In addition to the item's useful benefits, a creature attuned to this item can siphon the blood from its allies to empower its spells. When you cast a spell that expends a spell slot from a class spellcasting feature while holding or wearing this item, you can choose to use the blood of a friendly flesh and blood creature within 60 feet of you to empower the spell. A spell so empowered has its spell level increased as though it were cast using a higher level spell slot to a maximum of 8th level. The friendly creature loses 1d10 hit points for each level of which the spell was increased. If the item does not ordinarily require attunement, it instead requires attunement to gain benefits of this feature. That's massive. And 1d10? 1d10 is really not that much of a price to pay, especially when you're this far along. To be completely honest, this is a feature I might give to adventurers, you know, maybe from levels 5 to 20. One of them. I would give it to one adventurer. Maybe a bard. Maybe someone who doesn't really have high-level spells or doesn't get to cast them very often, like a bard, paladin, ranger, maybe even a warlock. Next, you have the Silencer. Give you guys a second to pause that if you want to see what that looks like, but again, you can get this book for yourselves if you'd like. To sum this up is what you would get if a giant, or something akin to a giant, contracted vampirism. Most giants revere their elders, making a silencer a crime against both nature and giant society. And again, this has the classification, the favor, and the foil, so I'll read those for you guys really quick, because it gives you an idea of where this kind of creature would fit into your campaign. Classification Brute, seems apt. Favors: barbarians, high mobility, paladins, high strength, and warlocks. You have your stat block, your actions, and all of that stuff. We're not going to focus on that. You can check that out in the book later. This is the interesting stuff. You get boons. There are certain benefits that you get if you manage to find one of these and kill it. And keep in mind, this is something that's designed to be like kind of level 25. The equipment carried by a silencer is either too big to carry or too corrupted to safely use. But you get these extra boons if you do manage to fell one of these. There's a lot more flavor text. Boon of Clouds. The creature's spirit is imbued with the magic of the sky. It gains a flying speed of 30 feet. Additionally, as a bonus action, the creature can surround itself in a fog in a 15-foot radius sphere, which makes the area partially obscured. The cloud lasts until the creature falls unconscious or until the creature dismisses it as a bonus action. Here's the main thing. You gain a flying speed, and this is a boon, which means it doesn't go away. That's massive. And these are flavored after giants. So you have cloud, fire, frost, hill, stone, and storm, and they all do different things. I don't want to ruin this for you guys, but it gives you an idea of just how massive these leaps in power are when you're above level 20. I feel like because this section is called Vampire Nobles, this is a good time to take a break from the monsters and creatures and talk about exactly what vampire nobility means, what that looks like in your game. So, like any kind of nobility, there are houses. House Belov, House Ignatus, House Meduvian, and House Brixel, and those can be retitled and reflavored for whatever. You can add more houses, have less houses, but there's flavor to each one of these that really drives home why these are such late game creatures that you would encounter. They are all operating in the shadows under different pretenses and subtexts, but this is definitely worth a read. Now, the last creature I want to read about from the vampire nobility is one that I think you really only ask yourself about if you're thinking of the worst case scenario all the time like I am, which is what would happen if a dragon contracted vampirism. Now, before all of you rules lawyers over there jump in the comments saying a dragon can't contract vampirism, it's a disease or it's a curse that only affects humanoids. This isn't about that. This is about going beyond the constraints of D&D 5e, okay? So entertain this for 1 second. This this is what I believe would happen if a dragon actually did or could contract vampirism. First, can we appreciate the art? Can we just look at that? If a dragon could contract vampirism, you would get what is in this book called a dreadworm. To whatever foolhardy vampire bit an ancestral dragon, what is wrong with you? The classification for a dreadworm is elite. It favors druids, fighters, flight, paladins, and range, and foils barbarians, clerics, healing, high mobility, and monks. Those two things kind of go hand in hand, so that makes sense. There are a few magic items and a few creatures that I didn't go through in here, but just to whet your appetite, give you an idea of what is inside of just this one section, you have the Dreadblade, which, in general, the Dreadblade is a great sword flavored here that allows you to recover health based on how much damage you deal. That's not unheard of in D&D, but you gotta read this to really understand why it's something you don't get until you're level 20 and above. You also have the Sanguine Urn, which is something that you can, fill with blood or other things for special effects. And the two creatures that I didn't go through inside of Vampire Nobility are Shroudlings and Elders. That's how you get into getting the Dreadblade and getting special spells and things like that. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. You can get the book and find out for yourself. But you may be asking yourself, why am I so focused on vampires? Well, a lot of stuff happened in Dark Dominion Session 3. But for Alden specifically, the party learned that he has a few vampiric powers. And the party is currently traveling with Strahd von Zarovich, who is the D&D equivalent of Dracula. I'll go on record here as saying Alden is not a vampire. It's way more complicated than that, and you'll have to go through the VODs and continue to tune in to get all of those answers. But vampires are obviously a part of our story somehow. Let's see what these baddies can do. We'll see if any of this comes up in the Dark Dominion. I really hope it does, for better or for best, we'll say. And the next session, again, July 30th, 7 p.m. EST. It's gonna be on twitch.tv/5% chance. Till then, be good, be kind, be helpful.